got mail. Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computers 2K Now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Amnon, your host for the next hour, along with Spence.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. And Gal is here.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Nick just connected, so he's with us. Just give him a couple of seconds to straighten it out. Our number is 919-518-9773, Computers 2K Voice on Skype. Today's show is made possible by vMix Software and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Gear. So, what's been happening this week? Mhm.
Outside of my personal musing with my server, I don't really know. Has
With
anything
your
happened this
server?
week? Yeah, I'm just upgrading it.
Oh. Upgrading OS or upgrading actual server?
Software.
Okay.
Dealing with software.
Dealing with. Well,
Negotiating with software. you mean.
But yeah, pretty much.
I'm not sure if I'm going to let you do what I advertise I do until I
That's
pound you into the ground first.
I am. Eventually, it's going to do what I wanted it to do.
One way or the other.
in your lifetime?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Hopefully,
That's
this
not a
weekend.
good. That's not a good plan.
Hopefully, this weekend.
It never does. I don't know. All right.
Make a note to send yourself from the future back to now the solution on how to do it.
That's the thing. I'm looking for that note that I'm sure I will leave myself, but I can't
Yeah.
find it.
Yep.
Oh well.
I've thought about one time. I said, what would I tell my younger self if I could tell it one thing? Right. When I was 18. And the only thing I can think of that would be an absolute surefire good thing to do is to buy Apple stock, original shares when it first went public,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and just let it sit. And that's brought to you by the moment in Forrest Gump when he gets the letter in the mail
Yeah.
saying that your shares
Invested
are worth
in some fruit company.
yeah, some fruit company.
Well, I had an interesting situation with a laptop, a Windows 11 home laptop, a Lenovo i5, about maybe a year old. It's a something 3, Idea something 3.
Idea pad.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was booting. It would take about 5 minutes to boot. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It's just forever. So said, well, I need to. It's my friend's John. So I took it and I said, hey, Nick, good morning.
Hey, Amnon. Good
Hey,
morning. Hey,
hey.
Spence. Good morning. Hey,
Yeah,
Gal.
good morning.
Good morning.
So I opened it. That was easy to open. I mean, it didn't have many. It just screws on the back. I like it. Normally, I don't like to open a laptop because you can never put it back the way it was.
You rip all the ribbon cables break the second you try to lift the lid off.
Yeah. This was really just the cover on the back, which was nice.
That's pretty common on most new
Nice,
laptops.
nice.
Because RAM for most things is up. There's at least normally one RAM slot and
Yeah.
an NVMe drive or something like that.
So I open it, and sure enough, it's a 5400 RPM drive. I said, well, I'll just put a an SSD. So I had an SSD. I connected it to the dock and cloned the the, the spinning drive to the SSD. It finished. I put the SSD. I replaced the SSD, mounted it, and I started. And it says a device that the computer is looking for is not connected. Hmm, it's looking for the other
How does it
drives.
know?
Huh?
How does it know?
Yeah. So
Can't find what I see.
so I go to the BIOS and sure it's booting from the C drive. That's the C drive now. So I restart the machine. Nothing. I put the other drive in, the old one back in. Same thing. I said, okay, what's going on here? So I put that drive on another machine connected via USB and told it to boot, and it booted. I took the SSD, put it on another machine, told it to boot, it wouldn't. So I said, well, maybe there's something wrong because this was an SSD laying around here. So I ordered another one, did the same thing. Now it will not clone it. It can't read it to clone. And I've been battling it back and forth all week, trying to see, and I'm ending up with thinking something happened to the machine. I may have static, maybe shocked something.
Mhm.
It does not want to do, and now it will not boot from the. I'm sorry, yeah, I forgot that. Now it will not boot from the original hard drive either. It just says that something that's it's looking for, it's not connect. A device that it's looking for is not connected. I put it on the side. I put it aside, and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit on Sunday and see if anybody has any ideas." But the machine comes up, and when it needs to go to the hard drive, it's not finding.
Did you reset the BIOS already?
No,
Back to factory default in the BIOS?
no, I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, I would do that.
Because because it's a single drive and there's no RAID and it's a laptop, resetting the BIOS is not shouldn't have any
Any change? Yeah, it should not change
there
anything. You're
should not
right.
be
Yeah,
there should not be any issues with I can't hardware yeah, I don't think there's anything that you could screw up resetting the
you're right. That's a
BIOS on
good
a
point. I was
laptop.
thinking. Yeah, I was thinking. I don't want to screw up any special settings, but yeah, there shouldn't be any.
Yeah, not yeah. If it was a desktop, I'd be like, there might be some power
Okay,
stuff,
I'll try that.
some CPU, um, some CPU voltage or something, but not on a laptop.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you said that at the top, the laptop it's a year old. Is it a year old
It's
new?
less than a year old.
It
Brand
can't
new.
be.
Why?
Could it
With a
be
5400 RPM spinning drive, a year old? I just don't I don't
That's what
I
that,
he
that's
bought it.
odd.
He bought it about a year ago.
but did he
After
buy is it a new it's new. Is it a new model or is it a 4-year-old computer
it's
that's
an
new?
IdeaPad 3
Yeah.
i5.
They've been around
There's
for a while.
And I don't know, he was listening to the show and he heard, I think, Nick, you got one, and
y
Spence, you got one.
I
yeah,
do.
those all have solid state drives.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've got
This
one
ca
that's really old. I've got one that's probably 6 or 7 years old. It's that same Lenovo, and that also has, an SSD.
SSD.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Does it
Do you
have the ability to boot legacy, turn UEFI off?
that won't work on Windows 11.
I
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That used to be the trick. Oh, well, boot legacy and hope
I
Yeah.
actually tried to do
cross your
that
fingers
with
and boot
this.
legacy and hope for the best.
Yeah, I did it. I did it with with the SSD, and it didn't make any difference. But again, that should not be. It may do weird things if you are with the UEFI, but it wouldn't say that it's looking and it cannot find a device that it's not connected. Because
Well, if
I'm
for
understanding,
example, if the drive was not partition, let's assume that there was no data on the drive, it would
right?
absolutely tell
Okay,
you that there's no boot device available.
that's
There isn't.
different. No, that's different. No boot device. This one says a device that is needed here is not connected or something
So
like that.
if you go into the BIOS, do you see the drive
Yep.
in the BIOS?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it sees the drive, so the controller's
Right.
not
It's
dead or
something to
anything
do with
like
the
that.
something to do with the OS. I know. Yeah.
Well, it could be
Maybe.
just a hardware. You got a configuration in hardware. You should replace the drive. It didn't update the BIOS to recognize the drive. When you put it back in, it says, I'm looking for the old drive.
Well, but that's
Hold
but
on. Are you using UEFI or are
If
you
it's Windows
using
11,
legacy
you'd have
mode?
to.
it's yeah.
It has to. Yeah.
So, um,
I tried to turn that off on the SSD. I didn't want to do anything with the spinning drive to change that. I was afraid things will change, so I did it on the SSD. But yes, I tried different ways. But
so
I think
with
Nick's
UEFI, right? One of the things Windows comes with secure boot.
right. Yeah, I turned that
Secure
off too.
boot, you cannot turn it off. You
Okay.
must turn it on.
Yeah.
So secure boot means that there's a digital signature that says this is the original OS that was installed, right? And if you want to install a new one, yes, you can disable it for like a single time, like reset it, and then it'll do it again. But that's like the whole mechanism of security, TPM, all of that stuff. That's tied to the secure
Secure
boot,
boot. Yeah.
so nobody can mess up with the OS uh, and clone it or whatever, right? And make it boot properly. One of the things that you can do, you might be able to disable secure boot and then boot into safe mode.
I tried. Same
So
thing. I tried to
it probably
repair.
has to do with the secure boot stuff.
It goes to the
That's
repair, and right away comes out with the screen. It says, "No, can't find a device." It never speaks about the hard drive. It calls it. It just says device. So okay. So but there are other things, other pieces of hardware that come into play when you boot. So I, I don't know. I just had to take a break and. But yeah, I'll try and reset the BIOS. That's a very good idea. Why didn't I think about it? Yeah, you always think too far, like something is real complicated. And Nick, since you have good advice here,
Yeah, well, let's be clear. It's a good thought. It
it's a
may
good
not be a
thought.
good.
Yeah.
It might not be a good advice.
Did you ever start your um,
Engines.
vMix and it did not? The picture was not all over the shot. I mean, on the this morning on the reruns, when I transferred the video from here to the reruns machine, I'm looking at the shot over there, and the shot is only like on the upper left corner, real
You mean
small.
it's not taking up the
It's
full?
not taking up the whole thing, and nothing was done.
Yeah, you might just need to reboot it. It's an aspect
Well,
ratio thing.
I rebooted. I rebooted both machines.
Mhm.
I rebooted the switch that the video switch.
Yeah.
Same thing, and I did not want to fool around with the sizing because that's why I asked you if you're joining us. But when you didn't answer right away, I went ahead and I actually resized the zoom thing on the thing, and it's okay. I'll see if it one day I come in here and the picture is huge.
Yeah, well, just don't save the profile, and then you can
Yeah,
close out of it, and it'll go back.
it's real interesting that it's just like just like that. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So, are you done with your political stuff, or I mean,
How
going
can I be
out,
done with my
going?
political stuff?
No,
Yeah.
no, going out and doing is the elections too close to do anything anymore, or you
What
still,
I don't understand your question.
you
What
know,
kind of stuff?
knocking on doors and
Oh,
calling
no,
people?
I knocked some doors last weekend. I've been I guess you could technically describe it as loitering. I've been loitering around the polls, just talking to people and kind of getting um a temperature
What's
of
going on?
of what's going on. Yeah. So I've been doing that. I'm heading out to Charlotte Wednesday for an event. Um, so that'll be good. And then next Tuesday I'll be up in Raleigh.
Are you flying up to Madison Square Garden after the show?
No, no, is that event
Oh,
tonight?
starts this afternoon. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, couple in the home stretch, 9 days.
Hmm. All right, you're going to relax a little afterwards,
Yeah, yeah.
afterwards.
Gal's got the right. Yeah, Gal's got the right. If you could see Gal right now, eyebrow raised, moving head back. I mean, maybe not. Who knows?
Define relax.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah,
it's been good though. It's been really good. Oh, but I'll mention this at the end. But the new radio show is now available via podcast, so it's a lot easier to download and listen to.
Oh,
I'm glad I
nice.
got that
So to
spun
go
up.
to nickcraig.com and
It's yeah, that's not there yet.
oh,
Haven't
where is it
I've got
available?
any app.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
By the
and
way, archive.org is back up.
no, it's not. Not for
You can't upload new
you.
content, but it is
Right.
back up.
Oh,
So
yeah,
all
it,
your
it is.
old stuff is so all your old
No,
stuff's
no,
available.
no, it's not. Try to
What
go
do you
and
mean it's
listen.
not?
Try.
I did.
You can watch the video because it's on YouTube. But if you try
Yeah.
to click on the link, I did it yesterday. If you try to click on the link itself, the long link, it'll say not available.
And
Maybe
So I'm
you
gonna
they're
need
play
to
this for you
update the
right now.
links.
Do you hear this?
the what?
Says, for instance, because they said,
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
That's
So
audio
maybe
coming from that's audio coming from an episode of Infection from 3 weeks ago that's hosted on archive.
are you kidding me? So I don't understand what's going
No, I'm
on.
lying.
No, it's all right. I mean, no, I'll be more than glad to
I'm full
know.
of shit.
I was going to say it's not so on demand, and I'll click one from a couple of weeks ago. No, it says item not available.
So what do you click?
I'm
on
going
archive.
to nissancommunications.com,
Okay.
and you go to on demand,
Okay.
and the description is the audio that is hosted on archive. The description of the thing. The
Okay.
blue, and I click on it, and it says item not available.
Yes. The page is not available. The MP3 file is in fact available.
Well, dang. Well,
I think.
that doesn't do anything for me though.
Well, it does if it's in an RSS feed.
Okay, it's also
Because
in.
this is trying to load what looks like an embed, which is probably still down. This looks like an archive.org
Yeah.
embed page. So that probably is still down, but the actual MP. Well, actually, let's see. I can search and look for it.
There
What's
is
the-
there is a no, there isn't. The only other way to go about it will
I'm just
be
gonna search for it and see what happens.
because yeah, that's becoming a pain. But I mean, I understand, and I mean, I feel for them, and obviously they're working hard to do it. That's what I was just gonna say. You're talking about your show is available. Yeah, and right. It says that Logan is not allowed at this time. Yeah, they're not. They don't
Yeah.
want you to change anything. But I mean, I would like to think that they would send some kind of email, change your password, allow you to
Well,
change your password or something.
they will.
Well, But so that's why if you go to the archives and you're trying to listen to the audio, it will not come out. Now there is an RSS, but the RSS, yeah, the RSS is coming from here. That's right. The RSS is coming from Delta Force, from the server on Delta Force of last week. Yeah, that's right.
Just trying to find one of these shows.
I the only RSS feed that you're going to find is of last week's because
I'm not worried about the. I'm
I
not trying to find the
overwrite it.
RSS feed. I'm trying to find the file on archive
Oh,
to see if it actually plays.
oh. Did anybody hear anything about something that happened over there that was used in a bad way, that somebody broke in and took
I haven't
so
heard that yet.
I
No.
haven't either, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be kind of weird to upload everything and put it in order, kind of.
Well, I'll tell you this though.
Ah,
You know, we talk about we talk about redundancies and all of that
hmm
other stuff, and I mean, we Brian and I we use Archive for um our audio
hmm
RSS feed as well.
hmm
Um, and so fortunately we're able to just host it on the web server and it's fine. But as I was, thinking about getting some stuff ready for a new podcast, my idea was to just host it on archive. I think I'm actually going to pay for audio hosting um
I mean,
through a provider.
if you already have the, oh no, the mechanism is not there. That's right.
I
Because
mean
you,
it is, but there is some benefit of hopefully of paying for a service and getting some level of redundancy. I mean, it's been what, 3 weeks now that
yeah,
archives been unavailable, especially if you've got a show that um uh,
a
you
lot of,
don't have you don't have a paywall, Amnon, but a lot of podcasts
right.
these days, and what Patreon and additional stuff. That's a really hard it's a really hard
Yeah, you can,
situation when you're charging
right.
people or they're paying
Yeah,
voluntarily for something and it's gone because of archive. So I don't know. It's just, we think about redundancy with everything else, but we just assume archive.org is always going to work. And it has until
till that, yeah. Yeah.
till they're hit twice in the span of like 4 days or whatever.
Yeah. I was just thinking that you can get another small VPS just to store the files and
I
then
mean, I can store the
manipulate it.
files on a web server, but then
Yeah.
you lose some of there's no embedding and things like that work nice. So
Mm,
there's plenty of options, which is
yeah.
good.
Well,
So
all right. So talking about storage and all that, this is a story from last week that we didn't get to. It says SSD prices are set to drop up to 10% in the fourth quarter of 2024. Market research firm TrendForce has reported the decline stems from increased production and weakening demand, particularly in the consumer sector. Enterprise SSD prices, however, may see a slight increase. Thread4 analysis attributed the softer demand partly to slower than expected adoption of AI PCs. The mobile storage market could experience even steeper price cuts, with eMMCs and UFS components potentially falling 13% as smartphones makers deplete inventories. The forecast follows modest price reductions observed in the third quarter of 2024. So it's probably will be a good time to get an SSD. Of course, the word depleted and all that is I guess when you're buying thousands of tens of thousands, but when you're buying the onesies and twosies here and there, they're still going to be there.
I mean,
But
it's been good recently. You go to Amazon, I mean, you can get this is not any sort of price shopping, but you search NVMe SSD, you can get a terabyte WD SSD for $72.
yeah, you see, that's
I mean,
nice. Yep.
that's not the best price that you can get. I mean, that's
Yeah.
literally the second Amazon result.
Yeah. Yep. There's really no reason not to have an SSD anymore.
Yeah, here's a Kingston for $65.
Wow, that's a name brand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't remember what I have. I have two different SSDs.
Remember all the controversy when they first came out about number of writes and how
Yeah.
they remapped the drive, and there were two different types of flash, and you wanted to get the good flash and not the bad flash, and nobody talks about that anymore.
You still need to get a good. I mean, you need to align and things like that. I think.
Yeah, what is it? NAND and RAND are the two different types. I can't remember.
Isn't it VHS and Betamax?
That's it. VHS and Betamax wars.
There's always something like that, right? It's like we can never get it right the first time.
Yeah. What was the manufacturer that got criticized because they were advertising the higher, more robust version of it of Flash, but they were really shipping the other kind, the older, the less robust type. There was a big controversy over it. I can't remember. It was a big manufacturer too. Either they made a mistake in their manufacturing or they just lied. But
Huh.
they were saying not to. Yeah, that was a while ago. I think I can find the story, but it was a bait and switch.
All right.
Well, there was none with the SSD. There was with the mechanical ones, where I think it was Western Digital. Others did it as well. Was that
The hybrid drives.
no the specific mode of writing of the magnetic writing?
Uh,
It was both doing less performance and less reliability. Maybe Nick remembers what I'm talking about with the mechanical hard drives.
he's just back on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear your question. I was grabbing some coffee. What's up?
Nick, do you remember the hard drive fiasco where there was a certain type of magnetic resonance that was shipped with the way the magnetic heads worked?
No, I
They
don't.
started shipping thing CD something. Ah, damn.
How
Like
long ago? Is this a while ago?
this is like 4 or 5 years ago.
Interesting.
Beginning of 2000s, Western Digital starting to market certain drives and not.
Are you talking about the
Uh,
weird hybrid drives they would make where like they would be like there was some weird hybrid drives where like a little
Yeah,
bit
they
of the
had.
storage was flash or something and the
It
rest
was
of it was
it was a
spinning?
combo.
Yeah,
It was
I
a
remember
combo
those.
drive, hard spinning drive and flash.
Yeah, those were weird. I never had one of
I
those.
had one. It was
no,
good. It was
no,
a good price alternative at the time.
that you're talking about Optum, I think, and those are terrific. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Never mind it. But I remember something like this. Like suddenly there was a drop in the prices of mechanical hard drives, and eventually it turned out that the reason for the drop was a change in technology to a technology that wasn't doing any good. It was actually slowing down the drives and reducing reliability of them. Um,
I'm
I'll find
sure
them.
I'm sure Backblaze. I'm sure Backblaze has an article on it. They're the ones that do the yeah, no, it's them, right? That does the study every year of
Yeah.
Yes,
the most
about hard
reliable
drives. Yeah.
drives because they've got a gazillion of them in data centers around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. They have. It's a good gauge that they have because they use
Yeah, I
them.
mean all
constantly.
day. They
Yeah.
spin. Yeah.
Yep.
They
Yep.
spin, they spin, they spin.
All right. Uh, Gal, do you have a story about Bitwarden this week?
No.
There was some Bitwarden
Yeah,
drama.
Bitwarden
Huh?
describes itself as an open source password manager for business, but it also made a change. It's built its build requirement, which led to an issue on the project's GitHub page titled Desktop version 2024 10.0 is no longer free software. And
So yeah,
yeah,
this is a bit of a BS
yeah,
story.
yes,
Um, so from what I understand, their SDK for the newest version has a different license. But Bitwarden Core does not. So you can still do anything you want with Bitwarden, but for they've made some changes with the most recent SDK, um, that there's some license changes, and everybody's freaking out about it. And
yeah,
I
but
I don't see it as an issue.
I think they said that they fixed it. That there was something, some new file in there that it came out as though they're changing it, but it's not. And they said no, 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 no. And I'm surprised you didn't hear about it, Gal, since you're
Well, to hear about it, I need to read the news. I do not read the news. I'm
okay.
not.
Well, read the
It does not
olds.
affect me in
Yeah,
whatsoever. First
yeah.
of all,
Doesn't
right,
affect me either.
I am using Bitwarden clients, but the server I'm actually not using Bitwarden. I'm using a fork of it called VaultWarden. Okay,
Okay.
so the reason is because I'm using it for personal use. Uh, I Vault Wardens allow me to have all of the premium features for free
Oh,
in a very very scaled down option. So um, the 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 basic the the stack the server stack for Bitwarden is hefty. It requires like 6 or 7 different containers, a very very serious database in the background. Vault Warden is a single executable written in Rust, and it connects to any backend database it can use, even a non-database server, like a non-server database like SQLite, like locally. So I use it with a database because it does serve the family and a few friends, and so but it allows me to have all of the premium features. So this is a fantastic choice for me, right? At the beginning, I did get a paid version of Bitwarden. The problem was maintaining it. It requires a lot more involvement. So that was a big preamble saying, even if that project changes, right? I don't really care because what's at stake is what's happening on the server side for
mhm.
me, and that server is maintained by another group. So that's number one. That's the beauty of open source, right? It does not need to be the original maker. Now, as what Nick was saying, I don't know what the specific, but they're also talking about the desktop version, which is just a client, right? It connects to the server, and what I care about most is the server. And even on Android today, I've started using another client, not one developed by Bitwarden, but one developed by another guy who just decided he can make a better client, and indeed he has, right? And so this thing, it's like some drama, but not a lot.
Well, I'll say
Uh,
this for folks that aren't currently using a password manager, the free version of Bitwarden is good for like 90% 5% of people.
Yes.
So if you're not you and obviously the big one the ones that get more play because they advertise are things like LastPass and things like that because they spend money on marketing on TV and radio. Bitwarden doesn't do that. But if you are currently not using a password manager and want to use or want to begin the process, I don't think you should look at anything but Bitwarden. Start with the free, and if you need to upgrade, do
Well,
that. It's very
there's
cheap.
always one more, right? So Bitwarden, I agree, right? Like you and me were on the same page, but I also understand that people are hesitant with hosting their password somewhere else, and with
Mhm.
the free version, that's what they're doing.
That's
Mhm.
true.
So, and it's fine. And the reason I'm saying it's fine, it's because it is encrypted and it's encrypted very, very effectively on their end. They do not have access to your passwords. So don't worry about that. But if you're still hesitant about it, and the only way you've been managing it is either on a piece of paper that you might lose someday, or in an Excel file somewhere, then at least either use Bitwarden or use KeyPass, right?
Oh,
These
KeyPass. Yeah, I
two,
forgot about them.
these two are the relevant options. What with these two, you're covering 100% of your needs. Okay, either the one or the other. Now, Bitwarden allows you easy synchronization across devices, and it makes it very, very, very convenient. But if you do not like that idea that something is in the cloud, and that's fine, I get you, right? This is where we're at. I think everybody here we're on the same page on this. Then at least use KeyPass, right? Start using it now, right? Don't test, don't delay. Uh, you, Managing passwords, using different passwords for every service, it is key, especially today where you have a breach every day. So
Yeah, and you sort of like need a manager because it
yeah,
is it's a chore. It's a
right.
real chore. Yeah. Yep.
And start trusting whatever you're using to generate your password. Make them long,
Mhm.
make them impossible for you to remember, but also impossible for a machine to crack.
The crack.
Okay, so yeah.
Yep.
Turn on two-factor authentication.
Yeah, for that you need a server though, right? That's something KeyPass can't really help with.
No, I mean, if
Oh,
the
on the
place you're
service?
logging
Yeah.
into offers it, you have to use it. I mean, don't ignore. And most places now require it. So
About time, kind of. Only
yeah,
it's how it's implemented.
it's
And
not an inconvenience anymore. If you have a phone, it's not an inconvenience.
yeah,
Well, the nice thing about these password managers, depending on which one you're using, is that not only can you put the 2FA key into your phone Spence, but you can put it right into the password manager, so
Yep.
you don't even have to pull out your phone. Um, you can do both at, kind of at the same time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
looking at the state of, I remember Windows 10 when it came out, Microsoft had a declaration that they're putting an end to passwords, right? And I gotta say that when they came out with that, it's like I snickered, and I felt like they have zero understanding of the security scheme of the world. But turns out that they were completely right. There's a different way of doing this, and they introduced their as part of their OS a section called Windows Hello, which I gotta say at the beginning I completely misunderstood. I did not understand what that was about. Today, when I look at their scheme of security in the OS, I understand it. And what they did is they built a password manager, sort of a security vault inside the OS, and they also included different ways to interface with that security vault. Uh, and if you, for example, if you buy a new laptop today, one of the features that comes with it the webcam that is embedded into the laptop is usually something called a Windows Hello compatible webcam. What that means is on top of the iris that passes the image to the sensor, there's also an infrared or depth sensing sensor there that will make sure that if a face is in front of the camera, it will actually detect that it's a face and not just a flat image. And that allows for facial recognition software authentication, facial recognition based authentication. That happens locally on your machine. So when you're using that, whatever biometrics or whatever interface you're using to open the vault, right? That happens locally on your machine. There's no network connectivity involved there at all. And you get access to the vault. And the vault can contain your credentials. And these days, it also contains passkeys, right? Which are these complex certificate based credentials that are exchanged between a web browser and the OS. So suddenly, all you need to remember is either your local PIN or just a biometric feature that you're using to log in and refresh your authentication, and you're safe. So if you haven't used anything, at least 30 to 40% can be covered just by your OS built-in security measures. Keep in mind, though, right, that unlike a tool like BitWarden or KeePass, uh, it's not very mobile. It's not very portable. It's in your OS. Yes, you can sync it through some app, but then you're relying on a huge player like Microsoft. Microsoft is a huge target, right? Eventually, something somewhere might break. It might be at your computer with some sort of Trojan horse or virus, right? Or it might, and it'll target for almost for sure it'll target that area. So yes, get comfortable in using it, but understand also the risks in using that exclusively. Okay. With a tool like KeyPass or Bitwarden, those are much smaller targets compared to your Microsoft Vault. Okay. So keep that in mind. There are tools, they're better. You can trust Windows Hello today. It's a fantastic architecture. And by the way, when you use something like Bitwarden, it hooks in. It knows also how to hook in to the Windows Hello uh, part of it.
So there
So
are
keep
ways
that in
to
mind.
be safer online these
Yeah.
days than what they used to be. So look at it and adapt some of them.
Yep.
I'm
Absolutely.
gonna I'm gonna say this though, Gal. I think smartphones, and I haven't used an Android anytime recently, so my data is out of my data is not good there. But almost every single app I use, actually every single app I use, scrap that, uses Face ID on my phone to log in. And I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I entered a password on my phone for a service because you
Right.
log in
But you
once and it
had,
tells you to enable Face ID.
but that means that the credentials are stored and locked, right?
Mhm.
In your iCloud.
Um, no, no, not necessarily. They're stored in they m- it, they might call it iCloud. I don't have any storage on iCloud. So I think it's called KeyPass on iOS, I think, or something like that. Um, so it's stored there. Some
Keychain.
keychain, excuse me. Um, so I don't really know where that's stored, but I think it's locally. I could be wrong.
Okay. So try this. Do you have an iPad?
No, I have one. That's the problem. I only have one. No, but to answer your question, I know what you're going to ask me. The
Yeah,
answer is going to be no. You will have to enter the password and enable Face ID
I see. So
because I've updated apps and it reprompts me for a password. And then once I log in, it says, "Hey, would you like to enable Face ID again?" There's one app
okay,
and
so
specifically the
uh,
Vanguard app. Every time I update it, it reprompts, which I don't have an issue with. It reprompts me for a password.
right. So Yeah, sounds like the face lock or whatever is like the Windows Hello or
Yes.
Windows Hello is like that because I do know that that was developed first on mobile. It was developed first on. I don't know if iOS or Android started with it, but they both have the same mechanism, right? So when you unlock your phone with something biometric, that's basically the same architecture as Windows Hello, right? So that's the same idea, and I'm guessing that on Mac OS it's pretty much the same as well, right?
No, most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah. With the touch bar and they've got the fingerprint reader on the touch bar. They've got the camera.
yeah.
So I'm sure it's a very similar
Yeah,
process.
there are some hardware requirements, like on a low end iPad, does not support Face ID, and
Yeah, and
it's
the
got to
reason
do with the
is
chipset.
it has to do with the fact that the camera does not have depth
Yeah,
sensing, right?
it's a lot
And
of
so
factors. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And by the way, if you want your webcam, any webcam, a USB connected webcam to do Face ID for you, like Face ID like in Windows Hello, then look for a Windows Hello compatible webcam.
Think
Um,
you think my camera via HDMI into a capture card will work for Windows Hello?
well, it all depends on the depth. But yeah,
Ah,
so
I feel like that's more of a well, you're using it. I wouldn't now on my laptop, the um and I think Spence's is the same way. The power button is a fingerprint reader, which so I use that on my laptop, but on
yeah.
my desktop, I don't know that I've ever even been prompted for Windows Hello, let alone ever thought about using
have
it.
you? So I'll tell you where you
But I also
will be
don't have a
prompted if
webcam,
you.
so
No, without a webcam. So first of all, if you haven't set a pin to
I have
your
a password,
OS,
no pin
no,
password
I'm
though.
talking. So set a pin because
Okay.
that pin is a way to unlock Windows Hello, and the next time you'll use it is when you want to log in to something with a passkey. You
Hmm.
could add Windows Hello as the passkey, but for that you'll need the pin.
Gotcha.
So that's why it's asking you for a PIN and not for a password. By the way, the PIN is much more secure because when you type in the PIN, the only way to actually hack that would be a keylogger, physically being on your machine and listening in, because there's no network communication involved in entering the PIN. If you enter a password, especially if you have um, a Windows account, a Microsoft account to log in, then there is a negotiation with a server going on there, right? So this
interesting.
is completely offline.
Mm.
The pin entry. That's the usefulness of that architecture. There are things that's happening locally, and there are things that's happening over the line, and they're completely separate. And what's ever happening is over the line is a lot more secure
Let
because
let me
it's
ask
behind something encrypted.
let me ask you this though about this. So when
Mhm,
you places that you log into, like let's say the
mhm.
bank,
Yes.
they want to send you a pin.
No, don't confuse. I'm talking specifically about the OS,
Okay.
Microsoft Windows
Okay. All right.
OS
Okay.
pin. No, yeah, they call it
Okay.
a pin or whatever. That's over the wire. That's
Yeah.
something
They call it a
different.
pin because it's like what, four
Yeah,
to six digits
Yeah.
and it's a number.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, but there is communication in
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
they have to verify it. Yeah.
No,
All
that's
right.
something else.
Um, listen to this. Apple is in the news again.
Right.
Apple was handed a victory last week by a jury in Delaware, which ruled that two of Masimo's smartwatches and chargers willfully violated Apple's patent rights in smartwatch designs. This is according to Reuters. And they awarded them damages, $250. No, I don't
Well,
I don't know if this.
Apple Apple can wave the flag on this, but you remember they had to pull their most recent watch off the market because
Yeah.
Yes.
was it the heart rate technology or the board
Yeah.
rate
Yes, yeah.
Was
technology?
was
Something
lifted.
was was lifted from somebody else. So
Yeah, but
I
I
mean,
mean,
great. So
can
they
you?
spent what about they spent about let's see, $750,000
Who
on
knows?
lawyers to win
I
250
know,
bucks.
I know. This makes no sense at all.
Was this
And it's
small claims court? Was this an episode of like Judge Joe Brown or something like that? The case is Apple versus whatever.
you almost feel like they awarded them and said, "Okay, here, shut up,
Well, I
take
mean,
that."
typically, I mean, you have if you have a case with a winner and a loser, you typically would award. Now, what was the name of this company?
Masimo,
Spell that.
Masimo.
This is probably a very small company. Well, actually, no, they're not. They're publicly traded, so
Yeah.
this is not a small company at all. Huh.
I have an interesting job offer for Kamala if she loses the election. She can have Kamala's tech court. She could be the judge, and they bring in, they go dun, 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 and the people walk in and they have their. That could be fun.
Her and Lena Khan, the
Yeah,
illustrious
yeah.
FTC chair.
Who would be the bailiff? We have to pick somebody really good though for the bailiff.
All right.
I have been enjoying watching Gutfield lately. Oh my gosh! You
I
get the
want to bring
chance.
some.
You get a
Yeah,
chance to watch him.
yeah, typically some clips. I want to bring something up briefly
Yes,
without
absolutely.
and I'm not bringing it up to be political, but I'm bringing it up from a it is political, but it's not that's not the purpose. So Trump sat down with Joe Rogan yesterday. Um he did a 2 hour and 58-minute sit down with Joe Rogan. Um haven't listened to the whole thing yet, about halfway through. And irregardless of whether you like Trump, like Joe Rogan, dislike Joe Rogan, we are really on the precipice right now of, I think, traditional media ceasing to exist. The video's been up for 1 day and it has 26 million views on YouTube.
People are getting more and more
Like
conditioned.
it's not going to happen immediately. It's
Nice.
not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in 2 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But when you've got a guy like Joe Rogan, who is very popular, of course, and somebody like Trump, not only is he popular, he's very well known. Both of them are very well known. When you can pull 26 million viewers, and obviously not all of them watched all 3 hours of it. I'd be curious
Right.
what the completion rate is on the video or what the average watch time is. It's probably very high. Um, you really do start to wonder how much longer certain forms of traditional media obviously live sports, there's always going to be a niche for that. Um, but I don't know. I see the stats on this stuff, and I just really wonder, like, how much longer does this stuff exist before it's all podcast? I mean, Joe Rogan it's essentially a podcast. So, and this is just the video version. This doesn't include any of the audio listens on Spotify. 26 million views on YouTube in about a 36-hour period. That's almost unbelievable.
I have a simple answer for you.
Hit me.
Books still exists. It's
They
not
do, but
going away.
here's
It's
the
not
big
going
difference.
away. That's what I'm saying.
I disagree with
it
you,
won't
though.
be the main. It won't be the main medium, but it'll still be there. Maybe some of the form will change, but it's still there.
I disagree with you because I think books is a bad analogy because the cost of a book is the cost of a book is for all intents and purposes a fixed price. You as the author may not make anything, and typically you don't get it unless you're getting an advance from a publisher. You don't make anything until you sell. So you're paying, or so that your costs include a copywriter or a reviewer, and then the physical printing of the book. The issue with TV is it's too damn expensive. Like your break even point is so high because for all of these networks to have 6 studios in New York City and studios in Washington D.C. and West Coast, I mean the cost of operation is so incredibly high.
Yeah, it will change. I'm not saying it won't change. I mean, the studios, they will trim down and there'll be less of them,
Yeah.
but they're not going away. That's
Did
what
you
I'm saying.
see? Did you see the controversial story about how they don't pay anything for those licenses because
That's not what's not controversial. I didn't think that was
no, but
controversial. I thought Trump made a
that's not the
terrible point.
controversial part of it. The controversial part of it is that in order to get that free license, they have to be a servant of the public
Mm,
to present the news basically in a form and not in a editorial format, basically.
that's not the
So,
case, though. I mean that
but no,
I
it's
hear
not.
this. I hear this argument from Trump all the time about how he's going to rip the licenses away from
No,
NBC and
I,
CBS.
I,
They don't
I don't
have
see that changing.
licenses. It's individual owners and operators of television stations
But
that
I
have the
think,
market. And when
but
they
I
say
think
it's
you'll see.
free, I mean the spending millions of dollars on a transmitter and erecting a 1,500-foot tower to put an antenna on top of. I would not call that. I would not
No,
call
and
that
that's
free.
what's wrong with it because it isn't free
Yeah, it's not even close to free.
because of the overhead. But
Yeah.
what I think you'll see happen is, like Gal said, it's not going to go away, but I think you're going to return to the newsreader. You're going to return to where the person all they do is say, "This is what happened today here," and they won't that the people will shy away from editorial news. They'll just, I want to know what happened today. People would like these apps that have, I mean, there's different kinds of brands of it, but that is just, it's basically just a reader. What the AP used to be, right, was a feed to all these news organizations to have the base story come in without any garbage built into it.
Well, you're
So,
gonna have both, right? It's just each of these are going to amass a much lesser crowd. That's all. The
Yes.
crowd, when people talk about the democratized media, right? I think this is what they're talking about. Nick is going to get his news from the apps that he follows. Spence is going to get his news from the apps that you follow. Everybody's going to cater to their own liking. Now, is it good? That has nothing to do with it. I don't think this is better or this is better. I think both have issues, right? But yeah, there are going to be those who are just going to be news readers, and there are going to be those who are just going to be commentators. I mean, um, Rogan, right? He's somewhere in the middle, right? Because
Yeah, very much so.
he has his own commentary, but he also tries to bring like different voices and stuff. He's an interesting character, I gotta say, right? He's I don't follow him closely, but from time to time he brings out something that obviously everybody's interested in.
He was
So
like what Larry King's radio show used to be, where it was just a long form sit down interview show that was very popular because people are just interested in, even if it's not and I find myself doing this often. I'll listen to episodes of his show that I'm not super like the topic isn't super interesting to me. Um, and there's plenty I don't listen to, but the topic isn't even like something I really care all that much about. And it's just interesting to put on in the background and hear a 3 hour conversation about something in a very chill, lay back, relaxed way. And that's the format that people seem to enjoy.
now notice, right? You're saying there's a huge cost to producing TV.
Mhm.
Um, there is a cost to producing Joe Rogan. There is a cost. There is a cost to producing a Computers 2K, right? It's
Sure.
just once that cost has been invested, especially with Computers 2K, I think most of the work, and I think, and this time I'm not snipping or not jabbing at anything. Most of the work is done by Amnon, right? He gets us the news articles. He makes sure that everything's streaming, everything's online, and that there's a continuation. And that cost, that effort, right, is today on Amnon. And but he had to build that, right? He has
Correct.
the studio and all that and stuff. There is a cost involved. Uh, whether that cost is going to be millions and millions of dollars or just, I don't know, $10,000 over 10 years, right? Uh, that is probably the major change. because the medium, in a way, I mean, this is a talk show, right? And talk show were invented in the 50s, right? It's like, or even if you go before that, in radio. So nothing really changed, right? It's just whatever changed was the distribution. And yeah, and that'll change, that'll keep on changing again and again and again, but the content itself is going to be the same. So that's why when I'm saying books are still around, is when the moving picture came out, right? It seems like the end of all previous media before. And then when
Sure.
television came out, it's so movies are going to die. And then when, like, nothing is going to die, everything is going to be added to the mix. And all of the and what's important about them is going to change, but that's it.
Let me
Nothing's
give you one
dying.
example, though, where I might disagree with you. And books are still around. You know what is not around anymore? Newspapers. I mean, the local newspaper in Wilmington, Gal, now
They've
delivers via
changed.
they now deliver via the postal service,
Yeah.
meaning that you're getting my mail comes around 9 p.m. So I'm getting if I had the newspaper, which I don't, I'd be getting a 2-day old newspaper put in my mailbox. And
So
that format is not only dying, but I would argue
notice
in many
what
cases dead.
changed. So it didn't die, but it changed. But what did die was the newspaper stand,
Yeah, but what?
right?
But the reason that
distribution
it's
changed.
yeah, but it's more than the distribution. I mean, they
No, I
currently
agree.
yeah,
It's less important. It's not as
they don't
important
have
as it
anybody
used to
even
be.
working there. It's all syndicated stuff from USA Today, and I think that's who owns the paper. So it's a lot of syndicated stuff. That I think there's 2 people that work locally, and so newspapers will be you're smaller. Obviously, the New York
Yeah.
Post, the Washington Post, the New York Times, those will continue to exist for a long time. But local newspapers, I would say, but by 2030, I would suspect a lot of those are completely underwater. You have big ones, News Observer and things like that. That they're already irrelevant. They've been irrelevant for 5+ years now, but they'll eventually Gannett. It's Gannett, USA Today, and somebody else that owns essentially all
Don't
of
tell
the
Amnon that. He
newspapers.
still wants the Sunday funnies.
The Sunday circulars. Oh,
Yeah, no.
It's going to end a lot faster than you think because all these celebrities now are canceling the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times because they refuse to endorse the candidate. They're losing their absolute minds over this. And they're all bragging about dropping their subscriptions. Where? On X.
Yeah. So yeah, big newspapers will stick around. Small newspapers will close up shop, probably a lot sooner than we think, and for good reason. They no longer offer or provide essentially any value to, and to be morbid about it, as people continue to, the people that are reading the newspaper are dying every day. Like that audience, unfortunately, is shrinking every single day, and so that doesn't help. I don't think.
John has a good.
Please do not take any offense if anybody's in our audience is still reading newspapers.
Well, no, my point was that their audience is so old that, or their
Yes.
audience tends to be older. Younger people are not signing up for the newspaper. I don't know anybody that's signing up for the newspaper. It's legacy subscriptions from people that are growing in age.
Well, I'll tell you this: a newspaper, it's much more effective swatting a fly than an iPad. So,
and let me
I have
tell
one
you,
of those Harbor Freight things with the 6D batteries. That's what I use.
the last week I felt sorry that I canceled our subscription to the paper last year.
Oh,
I had to fix a chair, put glue, and it's right on the front. I say, okay, I need some paper to put underneath it so it will not get on the floor. I couldn't find anything big enough to put under.
I had my neighbor save paper for me because he still gets it. And just so I could put it in my drawer in my workshop for something, like you said, to lay out a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You go to Harbor Freight. They sell a big roll of, I think they sell a big roll
newsprint?
of, not newsprint. It's, it looks like,
Drop cloth.
it's that brown paper
yeah,
on a big roll. I don't know what you'd call it. Construction paper. I don't know.
Yeah, what you used
John,
to wrap boxes in before you shipped them,
Yes,
had to wrap it
yeah,
in.
precisely that brown kind of it's a little thick kind of paper. They sell that there.
I
John put
guess
a good. Oh, go ahead,
I was
Spencer.
going to say one other interesting thing is what will happen to over the air if
Well,
they're
that's coming back. I mean, over the air has seen a huge growth in the last couple of years because cable is so
Yeah,
goddamn expensive.
well, that
Nobody can
and all
just
justify a
these
because
two
of
hundred spectrum bill.
all of
it's
their I'm spending billions on the rural initiatives to get
Yeah, which has not
internet
worked.
has been a complete flop. And so supposedly Musk made an offer to say, look, let's put Starlink in these um, rural areas, and you can have it be the basically the downlink, and then build a small internet around it instead of having to bring in broadband from a
true.
distance.
Oh, but
Well,
J-
lobbying big cable and ISPs, they're very influential.
Oh yeah.
They donate a lot of money.
John put a good point in there also about all this TV going away. He said um, that as viewership goes down, ad revenue goes down, that will drive the change.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah,
that was my original premise of the
yeah,
Joe Rogan thing, and I said the cost eventually you can't afford for some of these networks, and this is more news than anything else because channels like HDTV and whatever, I mean, none of their content is live, and the
right.
cost of producing content it becomes cheaper every day. Um, but specifically for news, there is a delta where it is no longer. I mean, look at what CNN did with. They brought up that CNN Plus. They hired Chris Wallace from Fox. They gave him a huge payday. This was their online streaming platform, and it was a miserable failure.
Hmm.
I mean, it shut down within a year of operation. Um, and so think about transmission fees and everything associated with that. When these big guys, I mean, you even see it um, in the sports world with commentators. When these guys contracts come, not the big guys, they'll have jobs forever. But these mid tier guys, when their contracts come up, and it's a couple $1 million for whatever their contract that for 2 or 3 years, they don't get renewed because the revenue is going down, and so eventually you'll have your big guys at the top that are making all the money, and then nothing else because that you won't be able to afford any any other content.
Friday night, we were sitting. I think it was Friday. Yeah, yeah. And Kathy was watching TV and some comedies, and I'm looking. I see Reba McEntire, and I said, "Oh, is this her old show? It's a rerun." I said, "No, that's new." After that, there was also that Lopez versus Lopez or something like that with George Lopez. These shows, and I don't know how many more, are older shows that are now being sort of like revived. They're not
Yeah,
reruns. They are running out of stuff to show you. So they're just it's like okay, and this is what happened 10 years after the last show that. But the article here says subscription fees for video streaming services have been on a steady incline, but despite subscribers paying more, surveys suggest they are becoming less satisfied with what's available to watch.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's a problem for the streamers now, for the main streamers who have their own stuff going around. It
But I
is.
think
It's
that normalizes because unlike live television with these streamers, their costs I think tend to be more relatively mundane. Their biggest cost is bandwidth. I mean, there's like Netflix, their
yeah.
biggest cost is not employees or an office space. It's millions of terabytes worth of bandwidth that they have to purchase from a provider every year.
Mhm.
And the more people that watch, the more money you make, the more you pay in streaming. There's some sort of correlation there. TV's not like that. I mean, yes, you can charge more for ads if you have a larger audience, but
Right.
having a larger audience doesn't always translate to additional additional revenue. And on the flip side, having more viewers doesn't cost you any more dollars. It can only make you more.
Yeah.
I think the streaming prices will normalize though.
It will. I mean, right now it's because of all these guys, those big guys, want to replace the money they're losing on other platforms, and they say, okay, we can make it here. But, people will pay it for a little while and then say, nah, forget about this. And then things will correct,
ATSC 3.0, which is the new over the air broadcast transmission standard
right?
that is being rolled out. ATSC 3.0 is going to, I think, once one of these things, once TVs start shipping with ATS, a couple do, but once they start shipping with ATSC 3 encoders and receivers in them and things like that, that will bring a lot more to the equation, and probably put some of these streamers in a position where they're going to have to lower their cost because you'll be able to put up an antenna and get a lot more content that you can right now
Mhm.
over the air.
It's amazing what you can get now.
Yeah, I mean, with six plus digital sub channels and
Yeah.
things like that. Now, unfortunately, on the sub channels, it's a lot of
Junk.
I'm going to say it's a lot of junk. I mean, it's essentially just syndicated TV shows. There's not much in terms of content, but you do wonder if the day comes around where networks like Fox and MSNBC and CNN don't start leasing out some of these sub channels in major markets to get in front of eyeballs. Give up the transmission fees that you would make from being on a cable provider and offer your service over the air in places like New York City or even in Raleigh, Charlotte, large metros where you start leasing these sub channels out to these major, and then Newsy and things like that are on there now, but those aren't real like
Nick, I will
hard news.
sponsor you. We'll get a truck and we'll have a pirate radio station that we just drive around Raleigh. You can
Our
broadcast.
Well, you can have. How about this? I'll broadcast remotely. I'll just virtual into you. I'll remote into you, and you can drive around and accept all the liability. How about that?
No. I'll hire somebody.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. A
All
couple
right.
a couple of warnings here. WordPress sites are being compromised through malicious plugins that display fake software updates and error messages, leading to the installation of information stealing malware that's coming from bleeping computers. If you have a WordPress site, I always tell people, stop playing around with plugins. Find out what you want, from a good source and use it. But don't go back and forth and back and just play with that, because this is what it'll get you. They'll
Yeah, but
get you.
that's what makes WordPress so great.
I know, but that's also what makes WordPress so great to be
Yeah,
breached. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the reason everybody wants to use it is because there's a gazillion
Yep.
plugins for anything that you could
Absolutely.
possibly imagine,
But once you find what you want, stay with it. It's fine.
and deactivate plugins you don't use.
Uninstalling. Don't just deactivate.
That's
Take
true.
them
Yeah,
out.
uninstall.
Take them out. Another thing here, which is kind of sad, a Florida teenager who formed a deep emotional bond with an AI chatbot took his own life after months of intense daily interactions on character.ai. To make a long story short, he fell in love with the chatbot. And the article was talking about that he left information that he thought that if he'll kill himself, he'll be able to come back into the chatbot's world, or realm, into existence. So he'll
Yeah,
be, and this is, I mean, you can't blame it on the
it's
companies. You can it is
no, no,
something that
no.
has to do with parenting,
Look,
and
this is sad,
it
but it
is.
has nothing to do with the chatbot. This is about depression and dealing
Yeah,
with depression, and that needs to be the focus. So please don't take the easy route and blaming new technology for this, right? Uh, it has nothing to do with technology. Okay, it's sad, and this means that whoever gets into the situation needs help.
right.
And if you've ever if anybody has known ever somebody that thought about suicide in any way, whether it's serious or unserious, like find a therapist and talk with them, right? It's has nothing to do with the technology. I
No,
I
you're right. It's not.
This
it's
is
really
very
important.
equivalent. This is You're going to see a lot more of this, and I'll refer you back to 2010-ish, where anytime there was a mass shooting, it was video
Yep.
games that were
Yeah.
the
Culprit.
the culprit. It
Yep.
was Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty, which, by the way, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 came out Friday. Very well, very good if anybody's wants to play. Um, that was the issue. School shooting, shooting at a mall, shooting wherever. Oh, it's these kids and their violent video games that are causing that. What's interesting is that violent TV shows and movies, which of course many action movies are. I mean, look at any James Bond movies that existed since what, the
50s.
60s,
50s.
50s or 60s. Those are rampant full of violence. That never really got the same attention that
Oh
video
no,
games
no,
did.
Nick, it did. It
Was
did.
it just then?
No, yeah, yeah. At the
Okay,
beginning, it was
gotcha.
then, and then it was TV, and then it was video games. I mean, in the middle, it was D&D. It's always something. It's
Yeah,
whatever is at the forefront of, especially youth, right?
sure.
It gets that. It gets that critique, especially from the older generation that doesn't even understand. One does not want to acknowledge depression, right? Because that's something that they have neglected in the younger generation that is it's in front of them right now. And two is, yes, this is the new fashion, right? The new bright, new shiny toy that isn't part of their older culture. So it's that is where the age generation gap always plays, and that will always happen.
You know what I find interesting though, Gal, is, and I'm not going to do this because I don't want to get on some list or something, but I would imagine if I went to any of the major AI services and started talking to it and started hinting at the idea of suicide or something like that, these things are so they've got so much quality control in these. It wouldn't I don't think it would even let you down that thread of conversation for very long. I would be, we'll never know, but I'd be curious what these chat threads look like. For example, I tried generating a political image in Bing AI last week. It won't even generate that stuff. So I can't
Yeah.
imagine if I started talking to it and hinting at seriously harming myself that it would even partake in that conversation, let alone lead me down a rabbit trail of, oh yeah, you should do it. Oh yeah, it's great over here in virtual
No,
land or
yeah, for
something
sure
like
that
that.
didn't happen. Like
So I'd be very curious what those prompts
whatever.
were.
Yeah, I mean, even if the prompt,
Is
oh,
tangentially related, it would
yeah,
shut that stuff down, I would assume, immediately.
yeah,
It
yeah. I
So I'd
don't
should.
be
think that was part of the conversation. The same way that anybody who's thinking about suicide does not talk with his friend and saying, "I think I'm going to kill myself today," right?
sure. Yeah.
So it's yeah, depression. Depression is so complex and so heart-wrenching, for especially for people who do not suffer or have never known anybody to suffer, and they need to deal with it. It's incomprehensible at the beginning. So yeah, just putting a blanket on it is, it's important to talk about it in a certain specific way. uh it's not about shutting mouth, but it's always about focusing the light on the depression, not the person's personality, not whatever they did or didn't do, because that is just sidetracked by depression completely.
Now that I
The
think about it,
value that you cannot. Yeah.
I wonder if it would have the opposite approach, especially if you've created some sort of, I'm going to put
Oh, I know.
relationship in air quotes, if it would not help you
I know
be
that there
essentially
are
a therapist.
yeah, I know that there are large language models that are targeted at helping,
Yeah.
assisting people with certain mental issues. So I don't know. I don't know whether any of them are successful, but I do know that there are projects, that there are research, there are actually tools out there that address this. That's why I think it's important to also understand, like, whoever decides to pick up the gun and do something, whether it's outward or inwards, right? Which is a complete aberration to whatever they did before, and then it's not about the gun, and it's not about whatever somebody said, and it's not about any action. It's about stuff that goes on internally, and that needs to be addressed. So yeah.
Think about it. If AI could become like a service animal to people, people with PTSD respond really well to
Yeah.
having a dog. It just changes their life because they now have, without having to deal with other people, they can have a animal that loves them unconditionally and just
Yes, but it's
changes.
more than that. I
Oh
think
no,
I
I realize this, but that's a starting point for
No,
some
for sure,
people.
for sure. The only difference is with an animal, one of the key things is now you need to take care of that animal as well.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
it's a codependent thing.
yes.
Uh and unfortunately with an AI that probably won't be. It'll be faked maybe, and I'm not saying nobody's going to try it. They are going to try it for sure, but um, I think what works in that therapeutic side is the codependence of both, right? So
If you could develop an AI that would actually be more of monitoring somebody's condition and helping them to start with, but also being aware of what the person is saying so that the other people in their life can know.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So that
I'll
that
tell you
would be
where I do
valuable.
see this evolving though, right? If you take that specific service animal scenario, right, and you add AI to it, and suddenly you would be able to talk with your dog. And
Mhm.
I and I'm not saying this facetiously. This has actually been part of a very heady science fiction in the past. So some of it goes like to bad things, but some of it also shows the potential. So that definitely is going to be there.
There's
It's
been a
going to
lot of
play a
success
part.
in prison programs where they have very, very evil, violent people who are trained to take care of dogs, and it changes their lives because they've never
Yes.
had they broke the cycle of their relationships to make it a positive thing. And what would happen if you had the service animal and you had an AI that talked to you about how to take care of the animal? There's so many possibilities that would be so good. I think it's just you need
I
to get people involved in other people's lives,
Yep.
and people who are abandoned, who
yes.
nobody knows that they're suffering.
All right. It's time. Past time. Anything
America's
else?
pastime.
Oh,
Nothing.
oh. Anything else? Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Have a great week.
Absolutely. Have a great, great week. So thanks, Nick. Thanks, Spence. Thanks, Gal. Oh, he's there somewhere.
He's lying on the floor.
No.
You can't see him.
All right. And good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie, and Donna, Dina, Mati, Eleanor, Sarid, Yaakov, and Yael. Thank you, everybody, for tuning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing. Back up your hard drive and update your virus scanner, and change any same passwords where you use them. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. Again, remember, Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 a.m., Nick hosts the Carolina Journal News Hour on WBT, 1110 a.m. and 99.3 FM. And he's on YouTube, and it's now also a podcast, so just search for it. And Nick, I'm assuming people can just tell their Echo device to play it on TuneIn.
That's a great question. I will
Yeah,
research
okay.
that this week and let you know.
And Also, Nick and Brian host the Infection podcast on Twitch. That's for survival games, gaming news, and some political points here and there. Just go to infectionpodcast.com and see when the live show is that week, or just download the podcast and listen to it. Have a great week. See you next week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.